Hello there, I'm Theo and this is another radiography video. Welcome. So one thing, you guys are very lucky because I literally got my boss to come and do this video with you. So before we go any further, I'll just allow him to introduce himself and we can now get into the purpose of the video. So over to you, Mr. K.
Thanks, Theo. Hi, Theo, and hi to your viewers. I'm Kulan Kunika, the Chief Radiographer in Tshwane District Health Services. Thanks.
Yeah, so y'all had it. He's like the chief radiographer, like he's my big boss. So in this video today, we're going to be talking about ways in which one can grow in radiography, because a lot of people are unsure of what to do after they like complete their studies, or as soon as they are done, like they're in the clinical field, they all think I'm just gonna be a radiographer, take x-rays and that's all. So today we're going to be unpacking on different ways to actually grow within the field. So before we get any further, I just want to get to know you first on a professional level. So just gonna tell us maybe like where you graduated, where you went to school, how long you've been working, where you worked, because word of mouth is he's been on yeah, he's been everywhere. So anything radiography related, chances are he knows where you work, he knows who you're working with. So yeah, let us through that where you graduated first.
All right, thanks so much, Theo. I did my national diploma radiography in Cape Peninsula, University of Technology. It's in Cape Town. We're practicing in Radiography Hospital.
That word is very difficult.
It's an Afrikaans word. I also can't pronounce it properly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I studied from 2011 till 2020. Then after completing my diploma, I went to do my ComServe in Letaba Hospital. It's in Limpopo, it's a small hospital. I completed my ComServe there. That was in 2014. And then from 2015 till 2020 Feb, I went to work as a production radiographer grade 1 in Mankweng Hospital. It's still in Limpopo. And then in 2020, I got a chief post in King Edward Hospital. It's in Durban.
Okay.
And then 2021, fast forward again, I got a chief post again here in Tshwane District Health Services. So I'm back here in Tshwane District Health Services for now.
Okay. Oh, for now. So the plan is I'm leaving you guys. So
I'm on the way.
Yes.
I'm leaving soon and very soon. Yes.
Soon and very soon. Oh my goodness. So it means he's abandoning us. He's planning to abandon us for you guys. Picking up from where you were saying that you went from a production radiographer to a chief radiographer, let's just go through those growth in that sense first, like in the clinical setting, with how can one grow as a radiographer if you're considering to stay within the hospital or the clinical field.
Fair. Thank you so much, Theo. I think if you are looking at it from a clinical point of view, rather a government point of view, because usually government only caters the clinical part among radiography growth. So when you finish your 3 years after registration as a post ComServe as an independent practitioner, most chief posts, their minimum requirement is 3 years experience after you have completed your community service.
Okay.
So there is a high possibility that you can get a chief post, and then after you qualified, after you have gotten a chief post or chief position, the highest that comes after that is assistant director.
Okay.
So assistant director, usually it requires one to have at least 5 years of clinical experience. And then the assistant director, on top of that, you've got the deputy directors. Usually deputy directors, it depends on the province you are working at or the hospitals you are working at. Usually these are the managers that manage your tertiary hospitals.
Okay, like the
so bigger institutions, or you find them in a district level, or you find them in the provincial level.
Okay.
And then on top of them, there is director position.
Okay.
So with the director position, usually it's not radiography per se. It's equivalent to your directorate.
Okay.
So it depends on where you work. You know, we are classified as allied health workers.
Yes.
So within that umbrella of allied health workers, we've got a lot of professions in there. So we tend to form our own directorate. So in a provincial level, we tend to have one person to represent us. Okay. So as a qualified diagnostic radiographer, you do qualify to apply for such position. And then on top of that, there is a chief director
Okay.
of that particular program, depending on where you are. For example, in
Okay.
Diploma, they call it clinical support services.
Okay.
So you do qualify to get that particular post. And here in Gauteng, we call it Directorate of Oral Health and Therapeutic Services. So we do have a chief director in that person. So you don't necessarily need to be a radiographer,
yeah.
but I'm saying with your radiography qualification, you do qualify to find yourself as a director of the directorate, depending on where you are. And
for all the
allied.
Okay.
Even deputy directors, you don't necessarily need to be a deputy director diagnostic, even though you get deputy director diagnostic radiographers. You sometimes get deputy director allied managers or deputy director support services or clinical services, where you will be supervising all your allied health professionals.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is in terms of your years of experience.
It's in terms of years of experience plus the experience from management point of view. Yes.
Okay. So if you maybe let's say you do like a part-time course in management, you stand a better chance of scoring like a position like that.
Very true, Theo. I think the most important thing is always develop yourself.
Yeah.
Don't say I qualified 10 years ago and then now I automatically will qualify to be a deputy director. For you to be a deputy director, you need to have had experience in management. So you need to develop yourself through courses and also understanding that is a ladder. You need to, step on
step
it.
by step.
Yeah, step by step to get there. So with such experience that you'll be accumulating on the way, it will make you qualify to get to such position. You can also be a CEO as a radiographer.
Right.
I know few radiographers that are CEOs in different provinces.
Okay.
So it's a degree that you can use depending on what you want to use it for. So it's a very big thing.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not really just limited to you doing X-rays and reporting on them if you have to.
No.
It's really broad like that.
It's broad.
Okay. So let's say now you have somebody who's like an academic freak, somebody who prefers, I'm going to get my diploma, then I'll get my BTech and then my honors, masters and like that. What are the channels for people like that? What can you venture into if you decide I'm just going to study, I don't want to wait for me to have like the 3 years experience for me to apply for a chief post, I don't want to wait for 5 years to apply for AD. If I choose to go the academic route, what can I use my qualifications for?
Wow, excellent. It's a very brilliant question. So yes, even academically you can progress as a radiographer depending on the university that you would like to work for or the role that you would like to work for. Most universities accept master's degrees as a minimum requirement for you to become the lecturer.
Okay.
So you can apply for lecturing position that becomes available. Recently, University of Pretoria, I saw they've got a post for senior lecturer.
Okay.
So for one to qualify as a senior lecturer, they usually need to have their PhD and then also they should have published articles. But I know a minimum requirement for lecturing position currently is a master's
degree, okay.
So it depends on university. Some they can say on top of that master's degree, please have some thought of experience with dealing with students.
Yes.
Either as a clinical tutor or maybe you have done a postgraduate diploma in higher education or your master's in health education, depending on the qualification that they will recognize per university.
Okay.
But then you can advance after your 4 year, because we don't have diplomas and BTech anymore. So it's 4 year program. So after your 4 year program, you can progress and do your masters. After you qualify with your masters, then definitely you can qualify to be a lecturer, and then you can progress further and then do your PhD. That one, it will lend you a position to become a senior lecturer. You can also become a head of department for radiography program in the institution where you are. And also with your radiography qualification, you don't necessarily need to be lecturing radiographers only.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it depends on where are you working and which university. So if, for example, you look at your dental student dentistry, they have a program called Radiography. So you can work in a university and be a lecturer for a radiography student, but do radiography section. You can also work in a medical schools and then give medical physics as a course, because we do that. And you can work in anatomy department. So it depends. You can also lecture as a research And then, if more especially those with PhD, they find
PhDs,
themselves that they are giving research not only for radiography students, but for an overall program of healthcare professionals. So you can do a lot within the academic space. And of course, you can be a clinical tutor. Usually, clinical tutor positions are open for people with experience in clinical setting, those that are either enrolled or working towards their master's degrees. Yes, they can apply for clinical tutoring position in different institutions that become available. Yes.
Okay, so as I'm also about to ask, like, how does one actually become a clinical tutor? Because you had mentioned that sometimes universities will consider that you have like any experience with student in terms of being a clinical tutor. So I was about to ask actually, Guti, how does one become like a clinical tutor? Do I just go to university and say, hey, I want to tutor your students when they come to the school, or do I have to qualify in some kind of way?
So I think it differs from institution to institutions. Usually most institutions, I'll give you an example with University of Johannesburg. Usually when they have a clinical tutor position available, they will post it in their website. And mostly their minimum requirement is someone at least with a qualification equivalent to the qualification that is getting offered. For now, that is a 4-year degree. You must at least have a minimum of a 4-year degree, but with extra clinical experience. You must be either be willing or be enrolled for your master's program. So you stand a higher chance of getting that. But you will also interact with the student in your clinical placement, irrespective of you being a clinical tutor or a clinical radiographer. If you're a clinician and you are working in an academic hospital, you will be interacting with students. Yes.
So basically, as a radiographer, you must always, know your story, because when students are there, you are like their tutor in a way, because they will be asking you questions. You also need to know your work in terms of positioning, technique, and stuff like that, because now you are like taking a position of their lecturer in the clinical setting. Okay. All right. So just want to know, in terms of specializing. So what are the specialties that we've got in radiography that one can get into?
Okay. So radiography, particularly diagnostic radiography, currently in SA, when you're looking at it from a government point of view, there is currently one specialty that they are recognizing. But we've got multiple specialties. I'll take you through that. Currently in government hospitals, if you do your mammography, that is the imaging of your breast, and you obtain a qualification post your 4-year degree, then you are registered with Health Professional Council as a mammographer. You are registered or recognized as a specialist. And of course, your salary is a little bit higher than that one of a diagnostic radiographer with a 4-year qualification. But that is not the only specialty that we have in radiography. It's that is the only specialty that government is currently recognizing in terms of finance. Or after qualifying, you're going to get money into your pocket. You can also study further and do your MR imaging. With your MR imaging, usually you will use it for your private practice. I know radiographers that are MR trained in private practice, they tend to get paid more compared to those that are not MR trained. So we even have the specialization in CT imaging. So those that usually will have a CT qualification, then they will get to earn more than those that don't have. But in government, currently, they are not really recognized. And we also have interventional radiography. That one deals with your vascular imaging. We've got your cath lab. That one is deal with the cath lab, your cardiac catheterization. And then we've got those ones that usually deal with your MR. I spoke about MR. So those are the specialties that we have within radiography. But there are many. So that most of them, they are not really recognized as an independent. But I know radiography education is evolving. And some universities already, as I speak, they are underway of designing programs that will address to such specializations.
So basically, like, all of these are like really, really big terms, which for somebody who isn't really like in the radiography space, it won't really make much sense. But basically what it is that there's different imaging. Like I always say that there's general x-ray and then there's specialized x-ray. So with all of these are just like your specialized imaging, which are more complex than just a plain x-ray itself, basically. So for these, you will need to have like special training on how to operate the equipment, how to look at the images that you are getting and how to interpret them. Also know if there's anything wrong, things like that. It's just those little details that make it a little bit more different from general x-ray. So I hear that there are people who are like getting away from the clinical setting or getting away from being employees to actually being self-employed. Is it really possible with radiography? Can I be a self-employed person and not say I'm employed by the government, I'm employed by a certain hospital? Can I get into entrepreneurship with radiography?
Wow, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely, Theo, you can own your own private practice. So currently, Health Professional Council of South Africa says you must at least have 2 years experience after you have registered as an independent practitioner. Because you remember, Theo, after completing your 4-year degree, you needed to change your registration with the council from student radiography to a community service. And then shortly after you have completed your community service, you needed to change it from community service to an independent practitioner. So 2 years after you have done that, you do qualify to open your own private practice. You will need to apply with the Health Professional Council to get a practice number that you're going to use to establish your practice, and also in terms of claiming and everything. So it's possible for radiographers to open their own private practice. And opening the private practice, it will depend on the area of interest that you are in. You get radiographers that are interested in general radiography or static imaging, where they will just open a normal practice and have their own machine, employ a radiographer, or they become their own radiography and see patients that come in and out. And then you get radiographers that will register to have their own private practice and go into partnership with private hospital and offer theater services.
Okay.
So radiographers that you will usually meet in private practice, most of them, they are either working for someone who's a radiographer who have registered and partnered with that particular hospital to offer theater radiography services only. Okay. So it's possible to do that depending on which entrepreneurial level you would like to look at. Currently, there's also a colleague of mine that she recently completed her PhD studies, and then I'm working with her. She has registered her own company. I would choose not to name the name of the company because we're not advertising. But she was working, her PhD level was looking at imaging of breast to check if there's any software that she can develop that can dictate or alert the doctor if there's any changes in breast tissue.
Oh, that is very smart.
So we are pushing the company. It's a registered company. It's registered with SAPRA. It's a market. It's something that I'm doing on a part-time basis. We are going to rural doctors selling this software for them to look at it. It's an entrepreneur company. From the skill of a PhD work, she's a radiographer, and we are very proud of seeing radiographers imaging like that. So yes, there's many things that you can do within the field of radiography.
Yeah, also within like entrepreneurship and like being an independent not based. Yes, I just wanted to ask, with like those ones that offer theater services, do they like buy their own machines and then they hire them out to the hospitals, or do they just become, okay, I'm just going to be a theater radiographer. If you need a private radiographer, I'm your person?
Okay, so I think it depends on the memorandum of understanding between you and the institution that you are working with. Usually most of them that I know, they actually lease their machine from the hospital. So you find that the hospital will buy the machine and then they will rent the machine. Obviously, after claiming, when you claim, there is code for the machine and everything, and then you pay them the machine. Some buy the machines and rent it out like to the hospital or even to the company. For example, occupational health and safety. They move around and screen patients that are working in companies for a monthly or yearly chest x-rays. So I can buy a truck, and then I can rent it to another radiographer with their own private practice, or even to the company. But they need to make sure that they employ a radiographer because we cannot allow anyone to operate it. And then it's under my name, then it's business for me. And also if it's under their name, it's also business for them. So I think it depends on the memorandum of understanding you sign between you and the people that you'll be offering services. Some, they buy their machine, rent it out. Some, they rent the machine from the institution and then bill them accordingly. Yes, so it depends.
At the end of the day, is we're making money, so whichever way is gonna work, yes, we do that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So what other what do I call it? Non-specific or non-traditional ways of growing can one use apart from the ones you've mentioned, like academics or entrepreneurship, or maybe growing per experiences, and like you've been working for 2 years, so you can qualify to apply to be this. What other ways can one look at if they want to grow within radiography? Yeah.
Let me first acknowledge that I omitted the experience. I was more looking into, when I started, I should have started with the experience before I looked at the managerial point.
Yes.
With experience, usually you, after 10 years, you need to move from one grade to another grade. So currently we have 3 grades, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. So after 10 years of working as a production radiographer, you automatically qualify to be graded as grade 2 radiographer, and after another 10 years then you move to grade 3. But now with the PMDS, performance management system that is in place, we've got what we call accelerated grade progression. You accelerate.
Okay.
So you don't necessarily need to wait for 10 years. How it works is you need to have 5 assessments done. I'm talking about government people now.
Yes.
You need to have 5 assessments done, which means it's 5 years. Out of these 5 assessments, 4 of them you must have scored a 4. Then automatically you qualify to move to the next grade. So within 10 years, you can be in grade 3.
In grade 3, yeah.
If you are not finding management position, but you'll be moving as a production level just within the rank in terms of salary. And then going back to your question as to say, what else can you do? There's quite a lot that you can do with a degree. It's actually a very rich degree. There is people that we call them clinical application specialists. I don't know if you have heard about them.
Please elaborate on
this. Usually when we buy the machine from the companies, there are radiographers that come and train you on that particular machine. So we call them clinical application specialists. That is exactly where I said privately with your MR and your CT, you tend to earn a lot. Usually those that clinical application specialists that will come train you in CT, they usually have a CT qualification. Those that will come train you in MR, they usually have an MR qualification, even though it's not a requirement, but most of them that I know, they have studied that far. So you work with companies that sell the machine, but your work will be in a clinical setting in terms of impacting skills. So they teach you about their product. After the customer has bought the product, you go there as a clinical application specialist to teach the end user as to how to use their machine. And then on top of that, you have what we call medical sales reps. These ones are the one that usually sells the machine. But with radiography qualification, it's not limited only to selling the machine. You can also sell instruments that are used in theater. You can even branch into pharmaceutical and sell medication or any supply that is needed within the health qualification. If you check most of the requirement for the medical rep sales, you usually see you must have a radiography degree or a theater specialization as a nurse. So it depends on where you are. But with our current degree, you are able to branch into becoming a sales rep or becoming a clinical application specialist. You can do a lot. I even forget about issues of research. You can be employed in a research institution. Your work will either, depending on the level that you'll be expected, either sometimes to conduct research or sometimes to participate in research in terms of clinical imaging. So it's broad. You can do a lot with it. You can work with your NGOs that are dealing with TBs, and then you move around, you screen. So there is a lot you can do.
It really is evident that this is not really limited to working within the hospital. So I also hear that there are people who are considering working abroad, like living in South Africa. Is that, do you perhaps know something about it? Do you require a specific qualification for you to go and work abroad, or do they look at your experience, or what exactly, do you know anything about the procedure of actually getting to work abroad?
Yes, thank you, Theo, for that. Talking about it, I actually at the current moment have an agency who's actually pressing me to take the Australian offer. It's happening. So South African radiographers are well trained, and then they receive job easily abroad. So with your 4-year qualification, it's possible. What you need to do is to register with the board for radiographers in that particular country that you're going through. But you can do that through an agent.
Okay.
So they usually have everything in place. As I spoke to you earlier, that currently Australia is recruiting radiographers. In my emails, I have someone who's actually pressing me to say, please submit your things. So you do it through an agency, and then they register for you, and then you can work abroad. So it's possible with our degree. You don't need to do any other course. Just your 4-year radiography diagnostic qualification, it's your ticket out of SA.
And does it make you more money?
Definitely it makes more money.
Okay.
Because if you check, our rent is a little bit weaker when you compare it to your US dollar, if you compare it to your Australian dollar. So obviously when they pay you with the Australian dollar, when you convert it back to here, it's actually more. Actually, the one that I was looking at, it was ranging around 120 to 149,000 per month for just diagnostic radiography position. I'm talking about the Australian.
I'm taking my bags, guys. I'm going to be recording these videos in Australia.
Yeah, so it's possible, but also need to consider the living expenses on the other side. That you can actually make a lot, 3 times, 4 times of what you make in Zanzibar.
So, do you have to like commit to saying, okay, if you're going there, you have to sign like a 5-year contract, or whenever you feel like, okay, I want to go back home, you can just go back home?
I think it depends on the agency and the contract you put yourself into. Some, they say they will give you the first 5 years. Some, they can say we can give you the first 3 months. So it just depends on the agency that you are working, the agent that you are working with, and also the contract that exists between the two of you.
Okay.
So it depends. Yeah.
Okay, so in overall, like this, I don't know how long this conversation was, but in this short space of time, I've actually gotten a very clear understanding of the growth channels we've got. Remember, like I said in my previous video, that as soon as you get into the professional field, you meet new people and you talk about different things. All these conversations that you have literally open your eyes. And as a student, honestly, all I thought of was you either be a radiographer or you become a lecturer or you choose to go and work abroad. But now I know, I can just open my own practice. I can. So yeah, thank you very much, Mr. K, for actually agreeing to do this video. So actually, we have one question for you, which is not part of this. Was radiography your first choice? Was it your first career choice?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, and how did you get to know about radiography?
It's very funny. I actually went to do radiography without even knowing how an X-ray tube looked like. Okay. Or rather, how an X-ray machine looked like. I just knew I've always wanted to do something in the health sciences. So what happened is I applied in Medunsa years back for pharmacy. And then someone called me and said, no, we didn't take you for pharmacy, but we have taken you for radiography. That was my second choice. And I said, what is that? When you are applying, but I didn't know. So from that, I fell in love with it. For some other reason, I couldn't do it in Medunsa, but I had to go do it in Cape Peninsula. But it was just by default. Yes.
And well, thank God for that, because now you've traveled, I don't know, like you've worked in so many cities of the country, so it was actually a blessing in disguise.
Definitely.
So I've always heard this thing, that you have like old radiographers who didn't actually study radiography, but they somehow became radiographers. What is the story about that? Like, I don't know what these people were doing before, if they were nurses or what, and then somehow they became radiographers.
Not sure about it, but I know of SDR. Those ones we called Supplementary Diagnostic Radiographers.
I think it's that.
Probably could be them. So Theo, South Africa was an apartheid country. So there were specific qualifications that were not offered for black people. Yeah, so earlier on when radiography came, it was usually white people only who will be radiographers. So then they have taken our black people to some courses that was a little bit lower than the qualification that they were having. That was allowing them to actually just take X-ray in a very basic level. So they were called Supplementary Diagnostic Radiographers. Okay. Yeah, so but they did receive some form of training, but I'm not really so sure as to when and for how long, but I know it was an entry certificate also for them. Yeah, but I think if we still have those that are practicing, probably there are very few now.
Yeah, they are very few.
And
I only know of one, just one.
Yeah, very few. Usually we find them in remote areas. Yeah, but yes, I think that is it.
Okay, well, I think this was a very great chat. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, which I know you did like, and I know you learned so much, please give it a very big thumbs up. If you've got any questions, I'm pretty sure Mr. Pinika is going to be looking through the comments to answer some of the questions that I probably won't be able to answer. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do click on the subscribe button. Yeah, until I see you again, if you probably want to see Mr. K again, tell me on what you want to see him on. But yeah, until we see you again, please continue to take care and share the love. Bye.
Bye, and thank you, Theo.
Thank you.
Awesome.